Thank you guys for having me out. It's an honor to be asked to speak to you. I'm a citizen of the city of Lynchburg. I agree with probably most all of what you say politically. I'm not a member of the party, so to speak, but I'm on that side of the fence by a long shot. Nobody has ever accused me of being liberal, so you don't have to worry about that. Let me introduce myself. My name is Chris Moore. Like George said, I am a firearms instructor. I'm certified under Gabe Suarez and Suarez International. I'm also an IDPA sharpshooter certified or classified shooter in 3 categories. I'm an IDPA range officer, and I'm a 20-year martial artist. I've spent the majority of those years learning how to combine all of the things that I learned into the most effective way to defend myself and defend my community and defend my family and defend those around me. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's something that I put a lot of time and effort into. And it's something that I like to share and teach and try to open other people's eyes to what actually means to defend yourself. I'm probably going to say some things tonight that are not going to suit your sensibilities. I'm probably going to say some things tonight that are going to make your jaw hit the floor. But what I'm going to share with you is the reality of what it means to defend yourself and what the reality of that violent encounter. Because there's no other greater threat, no other greater act of violence than for one human being to kill another human being. And in that vein, the only way to counter that is with greater and more effective violence. So that's some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. I'd like to talk about why self-defense is so important, why we have a right to self-defense, and then just go from there. I don't have anything planned as far as the speech. I have a list of notes. I like to talk, so this may go a lot of different places, so bear with me. If you would like me to shut up, just tell me to shut up. I wanted to base this on something that I think we can all relate to, why we have a right to self-defense. The very foundation to that right, I believe, was laid out in the original founding document of this country, the Declaration of Independence, in the very second sentence of that document. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal, that they were endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Those rights expressly were given to us by God from the moment of creation and are intended to be unalienable. And the best way to explain that is they're intended to not be separated from us. We were created with them. They're ours until we die. So how do we prevent them from being taken? Well, that answer is found in the very principle of self-defense. The Second Amendment to the Constitution reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." I'd like to address some misconceptions about the Second Amendment. The militia is not a government entity. The militia was never meant to be a government entity. The militia was any able-bodied male over the age of 16. It was the common man. It was you and I. We were to provide for the defense of ourselves, our communities, and our country if necessary. Despite what the mainstream media will tell you, the militia is not a dirty word. It's not anti-government. It's not extremist. The very concept of a militia is fundamental to the very founding of this nation, a nation that was founded on self-determination and true grit. The very first aspect of self-defense in this country occurred when we stood up to Britain and said, "Go pound sand, we're going to kill you." We refused to live under your rule, we refused to live under your thumb, and we refused to give up our God-given rights. And we're going to defend those rights to the death if necessary. England said, "Game on," so we brought it. And we did what was necessary to defend those rights. Another thing that I would like to talk about is another misconception in the Second Amendment is the word state. In the version of the Second Amendment that was ratified by the states and was accepted by Thomas Jefferson, who was then the Secretary of State, the word state is not capitalized. I believe that shows that the founders and the states themselves believed that freedom was an individual right. It's a state of being. It's the very nature of your existence, and you have the right to protect it with lethal force if necessary. I believe that's what the Second Amendment means. So for somebody to say that you have the right to defend your country or defend your state, no, I have the right to defend myself. I have the right to protect my unalienable rights. And that's where I think we have to guide the conversation. Because there are those who seek to pull that under the auspices of a government entity. Well, you have to be in a militia to carry guns. Well, we are the militia. The very founders of this country said that we are the militia. Everybody was the militia because everybody was who took up guns and shot the British. You know, we weren't an armed and trained United States Army or Marine Corps. We were farmers. We were doctors. We were lawyers. They took up guns, they learned how to use them to the best of their ability, and they went out and they shot the British. So we have to control the conversation here on what the Second Amendment is actually about. We have to stop playing the game of collectivism, which is how they're able to control it, and bring it back down to the individual right, that we have a right to the state of being free. That brings us down to why we have a necessary right to self-defense. Other than to protect our rights, who are we protecting our rights from? The biggest portion of my conversation tonight is not going to be an us versus the government kind of conversation. Because while that's always in the back of everybody's mind, while that was in the back of the founders' mind when they wrote the Second Amendment, we have regular and real threats to deal with on a daily basis. Anytime you leave your house, you have the potential to come across a violent threat. In 2014, an estimated 1,165,383 violent crimes were committed in the United States, and that's according to the FBI report. And that's anywhere from murder to aggravated assault, sexual assaults, manslaughters, all that is covered in that. 1.1 million. How many of you are familiar with the concept of the wolf and the sheepdog? It was an essay written by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. It was part of his book On Killing. That essay was one of the most important things that I have ever read in my life to develop my mindset on what it means to defend yourself and why I feel the way I feel about self-defense. The concept is very simple. Most of society would be considered a sheep. They just go along, they get along, they seek to do no harm, they seek to live in peace and exercise their God-given rights. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a sheep. If you are a sheep, recognize that you're a sheep, embrace the fact that you're a sheep, and move forward. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then there's the wolf. The wolf is capable of committing violence to achieve his own ends, and that violence is usually carried out against the sheep. They seek to prey on the innocence of the sheep. They will go to any means necessary to destroy the sanctity of that innocence, to destroy the very core values and fundamentals of what the sheep live for. But then you have the sheepdog. And on the surface, the sheepdog appears no different than the wolf. We are capable of the same level of violence. We are capable of committing the same, we'll use the word heinous deeds, but we are only willing to commit those against the wolf in defense of the sheep. Now, we have to be very careful that we do not confuse the two. Because in today's society, the fact that I walk around with a gun on, I could go, he's a nut with a gun and he's going to kill everybody in this room. And that's where the gun control argument gets its fuel from, is a mass hysteria of unfounded fear because somebody has a gun. I carry a gun 99% of the time. I won't tell you when that 1% is. I'm not going to set myself up to be a target. I've never shot anybody. I've had to use my gun to defend myself, but I've never had to shoot anybody. And most defensive gun uses, a shot's never fired. Just the very presence of having a gun, either being pulled on you or you seeing that, is enough to stop the threat. Because generally, criminals are cowards and they don't really want to be shot. It's a lot of posturing. You know, they come in like the peacock with their tail spread and they're doing all this stuff. Well, the next thing you know, the bigger peacock walks in the room and he's got razor blades taped to his claws, and that peacock's like, man, I should really get out of here because I'm about to get my tail handed to me. Well, that's how it is. But the problem is you have society who has distorted the lines between the sheepdog and the wolf. They see us all as the same thing. But the reason that sheepdogs are the way they are is because the only way to overcome violence is with greater, more focused violence. That is the harsh reality of it all. If I'm staring down the barrel of a gun of somebody who's hell-bent on killing me, no amount of begging is going to stop that from happening. No amount of begging is going to stop him from raping my wife when I walked in the door and I happen to be there 5 minutes too late. And he's hell-bent to destroy the sanctity of what we have built together. Me sitting there going, please stop, please stop, please stop. God save the situation is not going to fix the situation. What's going to fix this situation is me shooting him in the head before he can finish what he's doing. Before he can either kill my wife, before he can kill my kids, before he can kill me. That is the reality of self-defense. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to survive. I kind of laugh at the notion of the gun saves lives sticker because it's the exact opposite of guns kill. In the logical spectrum, it's the exact opposite of guns kill. It's an inanimate object. It does nothing. It does nothing but what the user tells it to do. And that goes back to the sheepdog and the wolf. It's the heart issue. Who's controlling this tool? How many of you in here carry a gun? How many of you, keep your hands up, how many of you own a gun? How many of you own a knife? Keep your hands up. If you've already raised your hand, keep it up. How many of you have hands and feet? Okay? You are all capable of defending yourself on some level. And that's where we have to change. I have to change the shift and focus on what is self-defense and what does it mean to defend yourself. Because not all the time can I shoot somebody. I may be in a place where I don't have my gun. I may have chosen to be a law-abiding citizen in the state of South Carolina thanks to the Attorney General, who now I can no longer carry south of North Carolina legally. If I decide to be a law-abiding citizen and not carry my firearm, what am I left with? Have I now invested all of my stock in that firearm? Because if I have, I'm setting myself up for failure. You have to be prepared to fight in any range. Guns are very impersonal. They're very impersonal. And it's nothing but a tool. A gun, a knife, a club, a screwdriver, a hammer, a bat, hands, feet, a car, a trash can lid, a broken bottle. Those are nothing but tools. I am the weapon. You are the weapon. You have to be able to rationalize violence. You have to be committed to do whatever it takes to win. This is not a matter of survival. This is a matter of winning. Survivals are quadriplegics. Survivals are brain dead. Survivors are sheer shadows of what they used to be. And it's because you cannot go out and say, I will settle to survive this. Hell no, I'm going to win this. You have to have that mindset. You have to have the mindset that I'm not going to settle for second place. Because I may survive, but I don't want to live in that state. I want to win this and put him in a box, and I want to go home and kiss my wife and hug my kids and go out to dinner and have a nice fat juicy victory steak and a nice cold beer. And, people are like, well, that sounds really harsh. Well, look, I didn't choose to initiate violence. It was initiated against me, but I'll be damned if I'm going to lose. You made your bed, now you're fixing to lie in it. Sorry about your luck. If they by chance choose me to be a proper target to go after. But like I said before, criminals are stupid. I have been in violent encounters several times. Why they chose to mess with me is beyond my scope of reason, but they did. And I did whatever was necessary to handle that situation because I'm going home. That leads me to you have to be prepared to fight in any range. Guns are very impersonal. I said this before, I wanted to kind of rearrange the way I had my notes set up here. Guns are very impersonal. There's a disconnect here. I can draw my gun, put that front sight on that threat and squeeze that trigger, and I feel nothing but recoil. Nothing. There's no connection between me and that person at all. Stand. This changes in this situation here. Now, when you take the gun out of the equation, everything becomes a very personal thing. Because I can't disconnect here, because anything that I'm going to use to stop him is going to put me in this kind of range. So you have to be prepared mentally to deal with that situation. I recently heard a story, and it's perfectly fitting. A state trooper had pulled a guy over. It ended up in a physical altercation between the two. The trooper ended up having to draw his weapon, and he emptied his magazine into this guy. This is when the troopers were carrying early 9mm before modern ammunition. And he emptied the magazine into this guy, and the guy was still coming. The state trooper ended up having to drown him in a drainage ditch on the side of the highway. And the guy tells me this, and I'm going, sounds like my kind of guy. He did whatever it took to get the job done. He said, this guy decided to initiate violence against me. I'm going home. I'm not going to give you the chance to kill me. So he took that situation where he was generally trained to deal with the gun. And he, in that moment, said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win this fight. It wasn't a matter of survival. It wasn't a matter of curl up in a ball and play dead and hopefully the bear will go away. It was, no, you chose to initiate violence. I chose to stop you. And if that means you die, that means you die. It's one of my favorite quotes from Rocky IV. If he dies, he dies. I'm going to do everything I can to stop you. And that's kind of how you have to focus your mindset. It's all about mindset. It's the will to win. It's the will to not be a victim. Because you can have all the guns in the world, but until you've told yourself here that I'm going to win, it doesn't matter. Because when you draw your weapon and you're looking down those sights and you've got that trigger pressed and you're getting ready for that thing to break and that round to detonate to send that bullet into that target, you're going to hesitate. And if you hesitate, you die. If you've never developed this is your greatest tool, is the mindset. Mindset leads us to have different types of reactions to violence, and whether that's proactive or reactive. Generally, the things that we talk about we talk about things in a reactive scope. I'm going to, if he draws his gun, I'm going to draw my gun. If he draws a knife, I'm going to do this. If he hits me first, I'm going to do this. Sometimes your best bet's to be proactive. And part of that proactive response is situational awareness. It's what's going on around me. We live in a society today, and I'm guilty of it. I'm 32 years old. I'm into the technology, where we spend a lot of time doing this. Our eyes are down. We're focused on this. We've lost all peripheral vision. We've lost the scope of everything that's going on around us. And we're setting ourselves up to be victims because we have no clue what's going on around us. Situational awareness is your best friend in the world of self-defense, because you can generally stop an attack before it starts just by not being there. Whether that's, hey, I see a guy coming at me, let me move this way, and judge then what his response is to that. Is he giving me some cues here? Is he saying, hey, I'm a threat to you? But if I'm here, I'm never going to pick up on any of that until he's got a knife in my neck, a gun to my head, or a baseball bat across the back of my cranium. So it's about, you have to have proper situational awareness. And when I tell people to train this, start by, if you go out with your spouse, tell your spouse, hey, find an object in the parking lot as we're walking into Walmart. And you just start looking. And he goes, well, what'd you see over here? And what it does, it gives you the ability to subconsciously scan your surroundings and realize what's going on. Now with that comes the levels of awareness, the threat levels. This was done by Jeff Cooper. This was really put into practice by the colonel. And it's 4 levels. It's white, yellow, orange, and red. And there used to not really be a white. It used to just be yellow, orange, and red. But we have developed a white because we have gone from cautiously aware to zombie with cell phones and tablets and these other electronic devices that are stealing our focus and our attention from what's going on around us. Most people live in a state of yellow. They're cautiously aware. They're looking around. They see what's going on. You see this in crowds, how people control distances as they're weaving around people. You're in a car. You're driving. You know, you're checking your mirrors. You see people around you. Then just above that is level orange. That's, hey, I see a car sitting at the stoplight here with his turn signal on. Okay, I've picked him up. That's a potential issue. I pick it up. I analyze it. I realize it's not a threat. I continue back on. I go back to yellow. In the self-defense world, orange is that initial startle response. Hey, this guy's approaching me at a fast rate of speed. Hey, I think I heard something over behind that bush. Was that glass breaking in the middle of the night? That's threat level orange. That's, something is really out of the ordinary. I should probably be ready to act. And then red, of course, is that act of violence, that violent response, whether it's on your behalf or whether it's you reacting to a violent response. That's level red. So try to find yourself and ask yourself every day, what level of awareness am I in? Am I in that, do I stay in that white level? Or do I generally stay in a yellow, orange, cautiously aware, I know what's going on, I can react to that if I need to? It's, how many of you know are familiar with the OODA loop? Observe, orient, decide, and act. That's basically what his color system is talking about. You're orienting, you're observing, you know, what's going on, how do I need to be in relation to this? You know, he's off to my 6, he's closing on me pretty quickly. What's my decision here? I got to decide, I think I'm going to divert left. My act, I divert left. He keeps going past me. It's kind of like the trooper that you have behind you who's been following you for 5 miles, and he flips his lights on, and you pull over and he goes by you. It's kind of the same feeling. You know, you're on high alert now. You just went, crap. You know, you're checking your speedometer. Is my seatbelt on? You know, I wasn't on my cell phone. Are all my lights working? It's that same kind of feeling. It's that there's a potential here. I see him behind me. I'm cautiously aware of him. I see that trooper behind me. Then the lights come on. That's orange. That's oh crap. That's my observe. I saw him. I oriented. He's behind me. I know where he is at in relation to me. The decision was the lights came on. I'm going to... The decision, do I run? Do I pull over? The decision in the self-defense situation, do I close? Do I create distance? Do I retreat? Do I advance? Then we act on that. So all of this thing has, these things all have to work together. But you can't have any of that stuff work together unless you train for it. And that is where 95% of gun owners fail. Because they think, I own a gun, so I can use it to defend myself. Really? Okay, when was the last time you shot it? Well, you know, I went to Lynchburg Arms and I shot it a couple months ago. Well, how many rounds did you shoot? Well, I shot a box, 50. Well, first off, I know the rules at Lynchburg Arms. You can't move and shoot. You can't draw and shoot. So I'm shooting from a static position. I'm picking my gun up off of the counter. I'm loading it. I'm pointing it out at the target, which is generally going to be in that 7 to 10 yard range. I'm going to shoot till my magazine is empty. I'm going to take the magazine out. I'm going to reload it. I'm going to put it back in the gun. I'm going to cycle the action. I'm going to shoot it again until it's empty. You did nothing to teach yourself how to fight with a gun. You learned principles of marksmanship. You learned how to shoot a gun, but you didn't learn anything about fighting with a gun. So then the next step in that is, well, let me go take the NRA class. Let me get my concealed carry permit in the state of Virginia. So I've got to take a class here. Really? Let's talk about the qualifications for getting a concealed carry permit in the state of Virginia. I can take an online class for $25, take it down to the circuit court clerk's office, pay my fee, and get a license. I'm all for freedom. I don't think we should have to get a license, period, to carry a gun. I believe that the Second Amendment is my license to carry a gun. However, people neglect the fact that they need to be trained. A well-regulated militia infers the fact that people trained with guns to shoot them effectively. Everybody misses that part. They think a well-regulated militia means the government is in control of it. No, regulated means trained. It means people were going to train with their weapons, how to camp, how to build fires, how to cook, how to march, how to do these things together effectively. People aren't doing that. People think that a gun is a magic talisman. The very simple fact that you own one apparently imparts knowledge to you that you've never acquired. Everybody is Jason Bourne until the crap hits the fan and they get their teeth kicked out. And then they're like, man, it didn't work like that in the movie. Seek out professional training. This area has very little of it. But we are changing that. Kurt Weigel and myself have started up a training company in Lynchburg. We are going to be offering across the board handgun, shotgun, rifle. And because my knowledge base is so vast and broad, I don't say that to brag. I say that because it's a benefit that I can share to other people. I can also offer other things such as knife, improvised weapons, hand-to-hand, ground survival tactics, and how to incorporate guns in all those different situations as well. I think that this area will benefit greatly from having that training available. But this area is in desperate need of this type of training because the fight is coming to us. The violence is knocking at the door. The wolf is coming out of the wood line and he's approaching your front door. The world is not getting safer. The farther we get from the founding principles of this country, the farther we get from Christianity, the farther we get from God, the closer we get to the manifestation of evil. We see it every year. The millions of babies that are aborted at the altar of convenience. That is an evil act. That goes against the very fundamental right, the very first fundamental right of the right to life. So if a child is not even precious enough, what makes you think you're precious enough for somebody not to shoot you? And that's the world we're living in. Unfortunately, that's the world we're living in. So you need to seek out professional training and instruction in how to deal with these types of things. Now, I'm not saying you have to train yourself to be a tier 1, high-speed, low-drag, grow a big beard like I had until 2 days ago, operator type, because that's not what you need to do. And a lot of your instructors on the market sell you that because it looks cool, because they made some cool YouTube videos on it, or they made a DVD series and they sold it, and now everybody thinks that the cat's meow. But you need to seek out functional, efficient, effective training to defend yourself. And we want to be able to provide you with enough variety so that whatever you have, we can teach you how to use. Mossad has done a lot of harm to the tactical firearms community because he puts a lawsuit on every bullet. He has made people scared to defend themselves.
Well, it's a fact.
It's a fact, but it's not something I want to be thinking about in a gunfight. When I have a guy, but you're alive. So you have to but see, this is where you have to get down to the heart of the matter. What's more important to you? Going home or dying? I can survive a lawsuit. I can survive a prison term. I don't come back to my family if I'm dead. Okay? I can survive surgery. I can't survive having my brain splattered across the concrete because I refuse to act. The reason I don't talk a lot about legal implications is because I'm not a lawyer. We should have asked Tom Garrett while he was here. Okay? I'm not concerned about the legal implications because I know that when I pull my trigger, God forbid, if I ever have to pull my trigger, I'm going to be legally justified because I'm not a wolf. I don't seek to cause harm. I seek to defend myself. Okay? But if we want to discuss the legal implications, in the state of Virginia, you can use lethal force for a myriad of different reasons. One, if I'm faced with other lethal force. If you have a gun, I can act likewise. If there's two of you, I can shoot you because that's a disparity of force. If I'm in a situation where I risk death or serious bodily harm, I can use lethal force. Okay? That's fine. I can survive that. Okay? And this is where it comes down to, you have to rationalize in your mind what you're willing to take. This is your decision that you have to make. I'm only going to give you my information that I have come to my own. Your mileage may vary. Yeah, and you know, you can make the water very murky with that, because anything can happen in the legal system. But again, my line in the sand is drawn at, do I win this violent situation that's in front of me? I can survive everything else if I win this. So, okay, I lose everything. I lose my house because this scumbag's family decided to sue me. That's fine. I'm alive. My family is alive. I still have God. And I still have my community. I can rebuild from there. I can't rebuild if I'm a vegetable. I can't rebuild if I'm in a box. My family is not going to be able to rebuild from that if I'm in a box, because the first thought on my mind was, man, am I going to get sued? You know, and that's what I talked about with Mossad. He's a very good instructor, but when you attach a lawsuit to every bullet that you fire, that becomes what you think about. And you start to second guess the fact that I'm justified. I'm 100% justified to shoot this dirtbag because he's trying to kill me. Man, but you know, I may get sued. And then you die. Because your concern was not about winning the fight, it was about surviving the lawsuit. It is, and we try to address it, but I generally try to tell people, look, this is where case law in Virginia puts you. Be justified. That's why the whole liberal nonsense that it's going to be the Wild West, that's not how it pans out, because people, legally armed citizens, draw their guns when they need to draw their guns. They don't draw them around and go, man, you pull it out in front of me. You know, that's not, does it happen? Yes, but it's an nth of a percent. It's not something that happens on a regular basis, despite what the media tells you. We're not out there pointing guns at each other because we're mad at each other because you jumped in front of me in line at Walmart. You don't pull your gun to intimidate people. It's not a tool of intimidation. It's a lethal force implement to stop a violent encounter. So that's where you have to draw your line. You have to go, look, it's not coming out of the holster unless I need it, but if it comes out, I'm ready and justified to use it. And that will settle your mind a lot, especially when you're training for this type of thing, to understand that, look, the chances of you getting sued in the state of Virginia for using justifiable lethal force is very, very slim. You're an attorney. You may be able to speak better to this, Tom. The question was we should focus a little bit more on the legal implications of using lethal force to defend ourselves. And our position is that if you are justified, the chances of you getting a lawsuit brought against you are probably pretty slim in the Commonwealth.
The chances of getting a lawsuit brought against you are high. The chances of being successful is slim.
But it's still going to cost you.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, probably. But I don't know, have you already covered like the use of force in Virginia?
Yeah, we're working on it. That's where we're at now.
All right.
You know, and so like I said,
I do this.
yeah, and you can chime in at any time if I am off base. But we talked about disparity of force. If I have three guys, whether they're unarmed or not, if I have three guys approaching me and they're getting ready to bash my brains in, I am fully justified to use lethal force to defend myself. Because I don't care how good of a martial artist you are. They can get the jump on you and they can swing harder and faster than you can when there's three of them. Sexual assault. I can use lethal force to stop a sexual assault. I can use lethal force against lethal force. So, I mean, generally, that's going to cover all the situations that you're going to find yourself in.
Sorry,
You're fine. You're fine. But what this has done is this has taken us away from that whole basis of why we choose to defend ourselves. You know, we've gone down the tangent and the rabbit hole of what about the lawsuit? What about the lawsuit? What about the lawsuit? Well, that's taken us out of the moment. And the moment is still have been to defend ourselves, our family, our community. Those are all after the fact situations. calling the police after you've had to smoke a dirtbag. That's an after-the-fact situation. That's not what I should be focused on in the middle of this conflict. That's not what I should be focused on when I'm having to use lethal force to defend myself, when my wife is having to use lethal force to defend our children, when you're having to use lethal force to defend your children or your spouse or your community or your elderly neighbor who you just saw two dudes kick her front door in with masks on their face. You know, your first thought should not be, man, what happens if I get sued? Because then, are you really protecting life if you're so worried about protecting your pocketbook? You know, we have to put the value on something. You know, and that's why there are good legal options out there for defending that after the fact. But again, that's an after the fact situation. That should not weigh heavily on my current situation and what my decision-making process is going to be. My OODA loop does not contain, do I need to contact my lawyer first before I shoot this guy? That's not in my OODA loop. You know, I don't have time to make that decision because violence happens very quickly. We get back to training, seek out that professional instruction. But beyond seeking out professional instruction in gun use, learn how to use them safely and effectively, learn how to use a knife, learn how to use your body as a weapon. Take martial arts classes, legitimate martial arts classes. Okay, they're not all created equal. If you can get your black belt in 18 months, it's probably not going to save your butt in a violent encounter. And I'll leave it at that. Get in the gym. Get in better shape. There's a reason why our soldiers do more than just learn how to shoot. They get in shape because you can't be a warrior if you don't have enough wind to stay in the fight. You know, and age is going to play a part of that. Physical limitations are going to play a part of that. But be the best that you can be in your self-defense capabilities. Now, not everybody has the time to train to be John Rambo, and that's fine. But take a step every day to be better than you were yesterday. And that goes with anything in life. Take a step today to be better than I was yesterday. Whether it's a dry fire practice at home in the mirror, whether it's practicing knife patterns that I've worked on, whether it's practicing basic self-defense with my wife and teaching my wife those concepts. Take a step every day to be more prepared than you were the day before. One of the guys that I've trained a lot with is a guy named Rob Tackett. He lives in Salem. He's got his own training company now, but he used to be with Pat Goodell in West Virginia. And they had a saying that has rung true to both Kurt and I, that when the time comes, you're not going to rise to the level of your expectations. You will fall to the level of your training. And this goes back to the notion that people think, because I own a gun, I know how to use it. I know how to defend myself with it. Because I watched Jason Bourne do it in a movie. I actually take it a step further. I believe that you will fall to a level below your training because you will have never been so scared in your life as you are when you are fighting for your life. And adrenaline does some crazy things to the human body. So if you think that, hey, I'm proficient at this stuff, I've done this, that, and the other, you know, on the shooting range, on the dynamic range, you know, I took my training up. Okay. Next class in this is, have you dealt with being blindfolded? Have you dealt with being spun around and dizzy and having to deal with situations, simulating being hit, simulating being stunned, simulating being disoriented, simulating having blood on your hands? Have you trained for those situations? Well, no. Okay, time to take it up a notch. Because those are the situations that you're going to be fighting in. If you get shot first and you're plugging a chest wound and trying to hold onto a gun with blood all over your hands, if you've never once addressed that situation prior to that day, it's not going to be good. This isn't in my notes, but let's take that self-defense a step further. I carry weapons. What do I carry to treat myself if I've been shot or stabbed? Get a med kit. Have one in your vehicle. Have one. You can carry enough supplies to survive a hemorrhage in your pocket. There's plenty of tools out there, SWAT T tourniquets, combat gauze wraps, these things that you can apply first aid to yourself to long enough to stay in the game, long enough to get professional medical help. So this is that next evolution. Okay, I carry a gun. Okay, I carry a spare magazine. Okay, I carry a light. Well, do you care anything to deal with the fact that you've just been shot in the leg? Because what happens then? Because nothing ever goes how we plan it. You know, Murphy's always going to find a way to peek her nose in there and change everything the way you thought it was going to go. You got shot first, and it happens. Do you roll over, or do you get back in the fight? Okay, I stayed in the fight. I shot that guy. Now I'm bleeding profusely. How do I handle this? You know, I really wish I had had that $10 trauma kit that I could have stuck in my pocket to save my life right about now. So this is what I'm talking about, how everything has a next step to it. There's a next step in the evolution here on your training and your skill set. Take those basic EMT courses if you can, those basic life-saving courses. Learn CPR. Because what if you come up on a situation after the fact? This guy has just shot this lady. You shot him. Can you render aid to her until the properly trained people get there? You know, so there's a lot that goes into self-defense other than the actual altercation and physical contact aspect of it. You should make the level of your training as high as you can. Whether that's an economic limit, whether it's a time constraint, whether it's physical abilities. But you should train at as high of a level as you can possibly get. We are hoping to be able to raise that bar incredibly high for this area, to be able to provide those training options for people that want to take that training to that level. And all that is summed up with a quote that I got that was attributed to the founder of American Kempo, Ed Parker. We don't seek to get into a fight. We want to get out of the fight. We want to use our verbal skills to de-escalate the situation, and hopefully this never has to get to this point. Hey man, hey, here, take my wallet. I'm not willing to shoot you over a wallet. I'm not willing to shoot you over my car unless my kid is in it. You know, let's see if we can talk about this. But when the time comes, if you can't get out of the fight, you better get into it. And you better have made your resolve that I'm going to win this no matter what. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I'm going to do whatever is necessary to take all of the steps needed to protect my right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is my entire view on self-defense. It's not just about a gun. It's not just about a knife. It's not just about a hammer or an improvised weapon or a lamp. I mentioned on the radio this morning, I can't imagine how many people were listening and their jaws hit the floor when I said, you know, you may have to run somebody over with a car. I guarantee you somebody would have loved to have been able to run over somebody with a car in San Bernardino. You know, when you come up on this situation where the guy's standing in the street mowing people down, the Charlie Hebdo shootings in France, when that cop was on the ground begging for mercy as that guy smokes him in the head with an AK-47. Man, I would have loved for a no to mow that dude down at about 60 miles an hour right about then. So it comes down to that it takes a certain mindset. Self-defense starts here and ends here. Okay? You have to get it here and in here, and then train for it to be here. If the shooting, if you've neutralized the threat and the cops aren't there yet, reholster your weapon, assume a non-combative posture, whether that's leaning up against a car, hands in the air, on the phone with the police yourself, if you're the one having to call it in, identify yourself to the police on the phone. Hey, I am 6 foot tall, I'm 240 pounds, I'm wearing a red shirt, I'm wearing khaki pants, I'm leaning up against a car, I have a weapon on me, it is in my holster, my hands will be up when you get here. If the cops show up and you're still in the middle of the situation, comply with their demands. Because again, they don't know who is who at this point in time, and I'd really hate for you to get shot by a cop after you just survived the fight of your life because adrenaline's running high, you're scared to drop the gun. We won't get into that deep pool of good and bad cops. Comply with what they're telling you to do, because in that situation, you want them on your side. Okay?
One other thing I've heard is invoke your right to remain silent.
That's what I was getting at next. Shut your mouth. There's a reason why police don't give statements for 48 to 72 hours after an officer-involved shooting. Because you have to process everything that just went on. You've just done the one thing you never wanted to have to do in your life, and that's take another human life. Be quiet. Take some time. Generally what we tell everybody to do is say, I've feared for my life. They were trying to kill me, one of those two. I want to speak to my attorney, and I need to go to the hospital. Because adrenaline is a very powerful drug that will make you run your mouth 100 miles a minute, and you'll be off telling fantasy stories because your brain is still trying to process what just happened to you. Adrenaline is a drug. Invoke your right to silence, because anything you say can and will be used against you. It will not be used for you. It's going to be used against you. So don't talk. Go to the hospital. Make sure you're okay. Take that time. Speak with your attorney, whether that's Tom, Garrett, or whoever you have as an attorney. Talk to them. Listen to their advice. Have them go with you when you give your statement to the police. And generally that's going to give you that 48 to 72 hour window that you have to process what just happened in your life. That your life has now fundamentally changed. You're not the same person that you were 72 hours ago. And now I can talk about it. Because this guy's going to go, shut up. You know, have that legal counsel and invoke your right to silence if that situation ever occurs. And I'm not saying that you're not justified. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying let's process this information because it's a very traumatic event that you have to deal with. And if it's good enough for the police to wait 72 hours to give a statement, it's good enough for me to wait 72 hours to give a statement. There's a reason why they do it. There's some psychological reasons behind that. Okay? So, you know, we advise all of our students to do that. Err on the side of caution. If the violent encounter is over, there's no longer any need for you to have your gun out. Go ahead and reholster it and wait for the police to get there. Now, I'm not saying don't be diligent. Don't be vigilant on watching that guy because he may still be in the fight and you don't know it yet. Be ready to handle that. But if you hear the sirens come and you've put two in this guy and he's on the ground gurgling, he's probably not going to be any more of a threat to you. There's no sense in standing there over the guy with a gun in your hand when the cops show up because they're going, we've never had an active shooter call before. You know? These guys, this is like, man, this is awesome for them. They're used to being in Mayberry. They're used to shoplifting calls and an occasional speeder, occasional marijuana, you know, kid smoking pot. This is what they live for. This is what they went to the academy and got the badge and got the gun for because this is their moment to shine. That's the truth. No cop wants to be a ticket writer his whole life. He wants to be a hero. He wants to be a superhero. That's what they want to do. That's why they become police officers, because they want to be superheroes. But don't let him become a superhero at your expense because the adrenaline was pumping on everybody's ends and nobody knew which end was up and you got shot because you happened to be holding a gun on top of this guy. Okay? Be smart. And that's why you have to think these things through ahead of time. You have to train for these things. When we do force-on-force scenarios, we will do things like that. You shot we train with airsoft guns. You shot the knife-wielding lunatic who was trying to stab you. He's on the ground. You've kicked the knife away. The police are showing up. You know, and we know what's going on, but we show up with the, drop the gun, drop the gun. You know, if you're going, what? You're going to get shot. It is what it is. You know, so be smart about it. You know, think these things through ahead of time. Have a game plan for after the fact. That goes into your after action report with who your attorney is going to be. These are the things. The violence has happened. I'm out of that situation. Shut up. Go to the hospital. Call your attorney. Drop the gun. You know, and be done with it.